Welcome back to the channel. I'm doing a new series inspired by 13th Wolfman, who I'll leave a link to his channel in the comments below. He suggested that we continue on with these challenges into November and do what he calls New-vember, which is the way I interpret what he's saying is kind of watch movies that you haven't ever seen before, that you kind of recorded or have, maybe they're not in your collection but you've recorded them or DVR'd them, and they're basically first time watches or blind watches, if you will. And so yeah, I mean, I thought that would be a good idea. I've got a ton of movies that I've added to my letterbox watch list that you know, I haven't gotten around to for whatever reason. And so the way I'm doing this is I'm just on my letterbox, which by the way is Number Crunch, if you're looking to follow that or look at what I'm watching. I've got my watch list and I just did a random shuffle, and so whatever comes up first up is what it's going to be. And ironically enough, the first day one film was a film called The Killer from 1989. John Woo directed film. Of course, you know, John Woo's done Broken Arrow and Hard Boiled and Mission Impossible 2, and you know, he's an action, as we all know. Pretty much everybody knows John Woo. He did Hard Target. I mean, he's action oriented. And by the way, sorry to digress a second, but the New-vember can be any genre. You know, it's wide open. It's not just horror. So it's just whatever is on your blind watch list. You haven't seen it before, you know, it doesn't have to be in your collection. So there'll be all kinds of things I think that'll pop up here. Now, The Killer for me, it's nice because I'm also doing Criterion releases and covering those off and on. I haven't done one in a while, but this one is going to kill two birds with a stone because this film was released as number 8 in the Criterion, one of the early Criterion releases, number 8, which is out of print now. It's a very expensive DVD, a dual DVD release that it's kind of light on special features. There's no audio commentary. I think there's just a couple interviews, so I'm okay with not owning it. In fact, I watched this on YouTube. At some point, I'd like to get a copy of this in the collection, but it probably won't be a Criterion unless they re-release it. This is a complex action story about a mob hitman played by Chow Yun-fat, who was in Hard Boiled. He's kind of a regular. He's been in so many action films, and he's kind of a regular with John Woo as well. And stars also Danny Lee, who was the cop in this film. He is better known, at least to me, as the Super Inframan. Love that movie. If you haven't seen Super Inframan, man, that's batshit crazy stuff. It's like Ultraman battling all these kaiju monsters. I love Super Inframan. Anyway, so Chow Yun-fat is a mob hitman, and but he's a hitman with a heart, because he in one of his mob hits he ends up blinding this nightclub singer accidentally. I guess the backfire from the gun, or you know, something with the, you know, when the gun discharged, it blinded her, and so he's really feels bad about it and decides that he's going to do one more hit, only so that he can pay for her corrective surgery. And he befriends this girl and kind of takes care of her and watches over her. At the same time, he's trying to get back to the mobsters that screwed him over in his last hit because they didn't pay him. And then he's got, of course, these cops that are trying to tail him, including one of the cops that was an old friend of his. And so these two old friends who basically took divergent paths in life then come together and become an unlikely partnership. At first, it's a kind of protagonist-antagonist, but it's also a partnership as well. Very complex story, as much a melodrama as it is an action film, but there's a shit pot of action in this. A lot of deaths, a lot of squibs going off. It's almost nonstop. It's either nonstop action or it's kind of like a melodrama between between him and the blind girl, and also the cops' backstory. So yeah, it's a good film. I think it's a very ambitious early film of John Woo's, and a very good one. The only issues I may have with it was the music is a bit sappy. I thought I wasn't really a fan of some of the musical cues, and some of the confrontation scenes between Chow Yun-fat and the cops, as well as in the mobsters, is a bit over the top. I mean, they'll have guns pointing at each other right at no distance between them and stuff, and there'll be these macho standoffs that don't really go anywhere, and then and of course some of the action is kind of unreal, but it's fun. It's it's an action film. It's a lot of fun. It's kind of a turn your brain off thing, and it's a very much analogous to John Wick. I mean, if you like the John Wick films, Chow Yun-fat's a little bit of a badass in this. He can hold his own. He does some ass kicking as well, and not just with a gun either. I mean, he takes some guys apart. So yeah, it's a good film. I thought it had a great wrap up ending. I enjoyed the ending. Highly recommend it. If you haven't seen The Killer, check it out. It's a John Woo classic. All right, I think that's going to wrap it up for day one of New-vember, and I appreciate you watching.